When we were in Selma, only just in March, we saw at Brian Stevenson's, one of his museums, a beautiful display, heartbreaking display, but children, little children saying, "Mama, Mama, has anyone seen our mother?" These children separated from their mothers, the cruelty of that. And that's why when George Floyd called out for his mother, when he was subjected to that knee in the neck, it was just a continuation of some horror that has existed in our country for a very long time. So Mr. Clyburn, Mr. Hoyer, our distinguished leader, Mr. Clyburn, our whip, joined Karen Bass, Leader Schumer, two senators, leaders on this issue, Congresswoman Harris, Senator Harris, Senator Booker, in the Emancipation Hall, aptly named for those who built the Capitol of the United States in their honor. We were there for 8 minutes and 46 seconds on our knees. My members will attest, it's a very long time. Amen. It's a very long time. And I graciously led them in falling over when it was over so that they could do the same thing. But here we are, the martyrdom of George Floyd gave American experience a moment of national anguish as we grieve for the Black Americans killed by police brutality. Today, this moment of national anguish is being transformed into a movement of national action as Americans from across the country peacefully protest to demand an end to injustice. Today, with the Justice in Policing Act, the Congress is standing with those fighting for justice and taking action. Let us, my colleagues, just go over some of those names of martyrdom. George Floyd, Jackson Davis, Oscar Grant, so sad, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Botham Jean, Terrence Crutcher, Philandro Castle, Freddie Gray, Walter Scott, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin. My colleagues, any other names you want to add?
Sean Bell.
You alone. Thank you. We cannot settle for anything less than transformative structural change, which is why the Justice in Policing Act will remove barriers to prosecuting police misconduct and covering damages by addressing the quality immunity doctrine. It will demilitarize the police by limiting the transfer of military weaponry to state and local police departments. It will combat police brutality by requiring body and dashboard cameras, banning chokeholds, no-knock warrants in drug cases, and end racial profiling. Will finally make lynching, Mr. Hoyer, a federal hate crime. And I salute Chairwoman Bass and Representative Bobby Smith and our two distinguished senators, Harris and Booker, and others, for their work in helping to pass H.R. 35 this year. Police brutality is heartbreaking reflection of an entrenched system of racial injustice in America. True justice can only be achieved with full, comprehensive action. That's what we are doing today. This is a first step. There is more to come. In the coming weeks, the House will hold hearings, mark up the bill. Once the House passes it, the Justice in Policing Act, Leader McConnell will hopefully, he must swiftly take it up. Leader in the Congress, the President must not stand in the way of justice. The Congress and the country will not relent until this legislation is made into law. My colleague, Mr. Clyburn, is always getting awards for liberty and justice for all. That's what this is about. That's what our distinguished leader, Mr. Schumer, talked about in Emancipation Hall. I'm pleased to yield to the distinguished leader of the United States Senate, Democratic leader, Mr. Schumer. Mr. Schumer.
Well, thank you, Speaker Pelosi, and I'm so proud to be joined by so many of my colleagues, Leader Hoyer, Senators Booker and Harris, Representatives Bass, Clyburn, Nadler, and Jeffries for joining us and speaking this morning, and all the support that we have from so many wonderful people behind us. Over the past week, hundreds of thousands of Americans have engaged in peaceful demonstrations against police violence and systemic racism. This large, diverse group, so many of them young, gives us hope that Americans are prepared to march and fight to make this a more perfect union once and for all. And so today, we are taking the first of many steps, many necessary steps, to respond to this national pain with bold action. As my colleagues will explain, the Justice in Policing Act proposes crucial reforms to combat racial violence and excessive force by law enforcement through strong accountability measures, increased data and transparency, and important modifications to police training and practices. This has never been done before at the federal level. In the Senate, Democrats are going to fight like hell to make this a reality. Americans who took to the streets this week have demanded change. With this legislation, Democrats are heeding their calls. Now we must collectively, all Americans, raise our voices and call on Leader McConnell to put this reform bill on the floor of the Senate before July to be debated and voted on. Now, some Senate Republicans have acknowledged egregious wrongs, but few have expressed a need for floor action. Too many have remained silent. Maybe they're hoping the issue goes away. I promise them it will not. Democrats will not let this go away, and we will not rest until we achieve real reforms. Leader McConnell, let's have the debate, not just on TV and Twitter, but on the floor of the United States Senate. A divided nation cannot wait for healing, for solutions. The poison of racism affects more than our criminal justice system. It runs much deeper than that. There are racial disparities in housing and health care, education, the economy, jobs, income, wealth. Yes. And COVID has only placed a magnifying glass on them. Yes. It is our job as representatives of an imperfect union, to right those wrongs, bring the reality and promise of America into closer alignment. Equal justice under law is one such promise. That's what this morning and the Justice in Policing Act is all about. The centuries-long struggle to make those words actually true for Black Americans and every American. Senator Hoyer.